So I think the big idea that I have is that foreign disinformation and domestic disinformation need to be treated the same way. It's been 4 years since Russia interfered in the 2016 election. And since then, our information environment has only become more polluted. We've done very little to stop Russia. And now we've got China, Iran, Venezuela also playing the game, not to mention fringe media on both sides of the political spectrum that are using the very same tactics that our foreign adversaries use in order to affect the information environment. And on top of that, of course, we've got the political disinformation coming from our elected officials, including the president himself. And over the past couple of months throughout 2020, but especially during the coronavirus crisis, we've been slammed with disinformation about not only COVID-19 and the Black Lives Matter protests, but more recently, forest fires, mail-in voting. And I think the point that I try to make in my book is that this isn't a new problem. A lot of countries have been dealing with this and actively trying to, reverse the degradation of the democratic information environment for over a decade. And their experience says that it takes all of us, not just government, not just the social media platforms, not just, the media ecosystem. It takes all of us to reverse that. And so one of the main points that I make, and something that I really didn't even think was going to come out when I started out researching this book about Russian information warfare, is that if we have governments that claim to fight disinformation originating outside of our borders, we cannot fight them and effectively do so when we are, we are our own purveyors of disinformation. And again, that comes back to my big idea. We need to treat these two things the same way. So we could sanction Russia to Timbuktu and back. The social media platforms could hermetically seal our information environment and start playing whack-a-troll even more aggressively. Just yesterday, we saw this big QAnon takedown on Facebook and Instagram. But until we recognize how disinformation works, that is that it, uses the fissures in our society, weaponizes those fissures in order to pit us against one another and traffic in outrage and emotion, we're going to continue to be on the back foot. So in the case studies that I look at in my book, places like Estonia, the Republic of Georgia, Poland, Czech Republic, Ukraine, the folks that are doing a good job and kind of making progress against this problem, both from Russia and from their own domestic sources of disinformation, are really investing in building societal resilience. And what does that mean? Of course, there are things like media literacy, digital literacy that they're investing in, but it's not just at the school level. Often we think about K through 12 programs. I want us to focus on voting age populations now. If you look at the polling, the folks who need help navigating today's information environment are actually older people who are used to having content curated for them to a certain degree. So how do we reach those people? Professional development programs are one way. I think social media platforms have a role to play, and so far they've been pretty tepid about that role. And also public libraries are a great vector to deliver this sort of training. They're still highly trusted in society. We trust public institutions that we have left. And that's something that we've seen used in places like Ukraine to great effect. But we also need to invest in public media. I think if you look at the resilient societies in other places in the world, especially places like Finland, Sweden, they've all got a really robust public media ecosystem that is not only trusted, but fills the information void. A lot of what we're seeing, especially during this election cycle, both from foreign and domestic disinformers, is the fake local news website that is meant to fill that informational void and that lens, the local news lens for many people. So we've got to really be pumping money into the public media ecosystem to fill up those news deserts. I think that's critical. And then finally, we really need to hold our public officials accountable for understanding that disinformation and the degradation of our information ecosystem is not a partisan issue. This is a democratic issue, small d, not large d, right? It affects all of us. It affects our ability to participate in democracy. And until we recognize that and hold those leaders accountable, we're going to continue to see the information ecosystem degrading. And frankly, we're going to continue to lose the information war. So I think we need to invest in these generational solutions sooner rather than later. We have squandered precious time over the past 4 years politicizing this issue. And that's been clear over the last couple of weeks with the news coming out as we head toward November 3rd.